Security and Privacy. I'm Dr. Mary Cecil. Privacy and security go hand in hand. Privacy cannot be protected without implementing proper security controls and technologies. Organizations must not only make reasonable efforts to protect privacy of data, they must go much further, as privacy breaches are damaging to its customers' reputation and potentially even put companies out of business. Breaches are increasingly being carried out by malicious attacks, but also a significant source of breaches are internal mistakes made by poor governance, practices, software bugs, even carelessness. Let's look at cyber breaches first. The cost of a data breach. According to the latest annual report, the average cost of a data breach worldwide is $3.62 million, which is $141 per data record. In the United States, the cost is almost double that, $7.35 million. Let's look at a couple of famous data breaches. The Equifax breach. In 2017, credit bureau Equifax was breached, putting the data of over 143 million Americans and many people in other countries at risk. At the very least, several 100,000 identities were stolen. Although Equifax did not announce the breach until September 7th, the breach took place several months prior in May of 2017. Hackers were able to breach Equifax by exploiting a vulnerability in open source software. Hackers had months-long illegitimate access to its credit reporting databases. The company waited 6 weeks to disclose the records. Records varyingly included credit card, driver's license, and social security numbers, dates of birth, phone numbers, and email addresses. A single internet-facing web server with out-of-date software led to the breach. It went undetected for 76 days. Attackers made 9,000 queries which went unnoticed due to a failure to keep network data inspection systems up to date. It hadn't worked for 10 months. Attackers accessed a database that contained unencrypted credentials. The company has been named in numerous class action lawsuits in courts across the country and has spent hundreds of millions of dollars since disclosing the breach. Here's more.
As we reported yesterday, a massive breach at credit reporting company Equifax has exposed the personal information of nearly half of the adult U.S. population. Today, shares came under pressure, falling more than 13%. This is scrutiny of the companies ramping up. The House Financial Services Committee will hold a hearing on the issue as other lawmakers and consumers are demanding some answers. Aditi Roy has the story.
Gabriel Gastelum is worried. He owns a home, a car, and uses credit cards. That makes him a likely victim of the Equifax cyber attack.
This is supposed to be a company that is supposed to help you when issues like that come about. And if the people who are trying to help you, are supposed to help you, are the ones being hacked, then what do you do after that?
Equifax, one of the top 3 credit reporting companies in the country, says 143 million Americans, or nearly half the country, might have been impacted. The information accessed includes names, social security numbers, birth dates, addresses, and in some cases, driver's licenses. 209,000 credit card numbers were breached.
That makes it one of the largest, if not the largest, breaches of PII, or personally identifying information, that we've seen to date.
Adding to the outrage, news that 3 of the company's executives sold nearly $2 million of Equifax shares days after the cyber attack was discovered. The company claims those executives did not know about the breach when they sold the shares. Equifax has set up a toll-free number and website dedicated to customers who may have been impacted. On it, a message from CEO Richard Smith.
I deeply regret this incident, and I apologize to every affected consumer and all of our partners.
But one class action suit has already been filed, and the New York Attorney General has launched a formal investigation. And the House Financial Services Committee just announced it will hold a hearing on the issue. Meantime, experts recommend consumers lock their credits so they'll be alerted if anyone tries to open a credit card in their name. Also, create an online profile with the IRS so no one uses your social security number to create a fake one. And change passwords for your online profiles. Gastelum worries it might be too late to protect himself.
We don't have a choice. Equifax is one of the leading credit score providers, and we don't have a choice. Had we had a choice, then I wouldn't use it.
Already, analysts estimate the cost of the breach could reach $300 million, similar in scale to the Target or Home Depot breaches. And in yet another twist, a source tells me the company website that was created to help customers who may be impacted also has security issues. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Aditi Roy, San Francisco.
Let's turn now to Tim Maurer to discuss what you should be doing to protect your finances, your privacy. He's Director of Personal Finance at the BAM Alliance. Tim, this is a mess. As Didi just pointed out, obviously the main system there was breached. There may be issues involving the sort of follow-up, how to help yourself when you've been affected by this. Tell me what I should do if I suspect I have been one of the people, the 140-some million people whose information may have been compromised here. It's already done. Somebody's already got it.
Yeah, Tyler, they got a ton of information too, and it looks actually like they may have gotten mine. Of the 4 people in my family, I think I was the one who was affected, unfortunately. So now they've got my driver's license information, my social security number, and probably my favorite beer. It's amazing how much information they got, but they are not holding all the cards. The hackers still don't have your passwords and your PIN numbers. So you should immediately go to your banks and financial institutions and change those passwords, because that should be information that the hackers don't have. I also recommend letting your bank and your brokerage firm and any other financial services companies know if you do determine that you were one of the hacked in the Equifax situation.
How do you know? How did you find out that you were?
Right.
Well, I went onto that website that you're now saying might be involving some lack of security and fraud in and of itself. But I went directly to that website. I followed the process that Equifax asked me to do, and they gave me the information that I may have been hacked. It said that the other 3 members of my family had not been affected.
So, Tim, there is a lot of different recommendations that are out there. You said change your password, change your PINs. There are a number of experts who are recommending freezing your credit, but there's a big discussion about how easy that is to do and what the implications are once you have frozen your credit.
Sure. It may not be particularly easy because it's different on a state-by-state basis, and it may even be different within your state based on each of the 3 credit bureaus. But it is the strongest form of locking down your credit. Now, let me be clear. It doesn't mean that people cannot hack or defraud you. It just means that you're likely to get notification faster if you've frozen your credit.
Well, how do
don't
you do
want to
that?
freeze your credit.
What does that mean? Do you
Right.
call the credit agency and say, I don't want anybody accessing my credit report and trying to open an account for me, or what? What does that mean?
Yes, each of the agencies will have their own process. If you call them directly, they'll direct you either to something, an online form, or you can even do a handwritten form if you would prefer that. One of the big challenges we see, though, guys, is that if you want to use your credit in the near term, you don't necessarily want to freeze it. But I have been told that every single one of us should be freezing our minor children's credit reports. And so that's something that I'm currently undertaking for my 11 and 13-year-old. They actually have a credit report, which is kind of scary to begin with because they don't have any credit. We know if they've had any activity on those, it's definitely fraudulent.
That's a topic for another day, why children would have credit files on them. But at any rate, we do have to leave it there, Tim. Continued good luck. I hope nobody hacks you. Tim Maurer with BAM Alliance.
Another infamous attack, the J.P. Morgan Chase breach. In 2014, a cyber attack aimed at J.P. Morgan Chase compromised 83 million household and business accounts. It included personal information such as names, email addresses, and phone numbers. The breach appears to have begun in early June, but wasn't detected and stopped until mid-August. A routine investigation uncovered signs that customized malware was being used. The attack was said to impact 2/3 of all American households, made this breach one of the largest in history. A little in some instances, login credentials were obtained through tracking users and then used to access customer information. Hackers also exploited the Heartbleed bug in this breach, a vulnerability in OpenSSL that allowed hackers to steal information that's normally encrypted. Less than a year later, 4 men were indicted for the attack on JP Morgan Chase, as well as several other financial institutions, with charges including securities and wire fraud, money laundering, and identity theft. The hackers made over $100 million through the scheme.
JP Morgan Chase announced on Thursday that a security breach over the summer affected 76 million of its customers. The breach also compromised 7 million small business accounts. 22 News reporter Alessandra Martinez is live in Springfield. She has more information about this breach and what JP Morgan Chase is now telling its customers.
Right now, JP Morgan is working with law enforcement officials to investigate this data breach, which began in June, but it wasn't detected until the middle of August. And right now, the banking giant says that names, addresses, phone numbers, and email addresses were stolen from the company's servers, but there is no evidence that any account numbers, social security numbers, passwords, or dates of birth were stolen as well. Now, only customers who use Chase.com and JP Morgan Online are affected, and also people who use their mobile apps. Chase says that customers don't need to change their account information, but they need to check their monthly statements carefully to check for any suspicious activity. As well, customers should also be careful of unsolicited phone calls from bank reps or any emails phishing for financial information. Now, JP Morgan says that it does not plan to reissue any cards because no account information was taken during this data breach. Live in Springfield, Alessandra Martinez, 22 News.
Another threat comes from inside the organization. Nearly 70% of employees have engaged in intellectual property theft, taking corporate property voluntarily or involuntarily upon termination. Almost 1/3 have taken valuable customer contact information, customer databases, or other client data. Most employees send e-documents to their personal email accounts when taking the information. Almost 60% of surveyed employees believe such actions are acceptable. Those who steal intellectual property feel they're entitled to partial ownership rights, especially if they had a hand in creating the file. So what are some solutions? Privacy laws, redaction, perimeter security, defense in depth, identity access management, rules and permissions, secure printing, email encryption, digital signatures, data loss prevention, information rights management, embedded protection, document labeling, document analytics, confidential stream messaging. Let's look at some of these. The Federal Wiretap Act prohibits the unauthorized interception and disclosure of wire, oral, or electronic communications. The Electronics Communication Privacy Act of 1986 amended the Wiretap Act significantly, including specific email privacy. The Stored Communications and Transactional Records Act was created as part of the ECPA and sometimes useful for protecting the privacy of email and other internet communication. The Computer Fraud and Abuse Act makes it a crime to intentionally breach a protected computer. Also relevant is the Freedom of Information Act, which allows citizens to request government documents that have not been previously released, although sometimes sensitive information is redacted, and specifies the steps for disclosure as well as the exemption. So these privacy laws have helped protect us with regard to privacy and security. Redaction. This is blocking out sensitive fields of information. In a paper environment, this is done with a black marking pen. However, privacy software can redact certain fields in a digital environment, making documents unreadable. Redaction is useful for confidential patient information and medical records, as well as other confidential document types such as birth certificates, financial documents, property deeds, and other unstructured information that is managed. A complete audit trail should be enabled to show when specified users accessed or printed specific confidential information. Traditionally, central computer system security has been primarily perimeter security. securing the firewalls and perimeters within which e-documents are stored and attempting to keep intruders out, rather than securing e-documents directly upon creation. The basic access security mechanisms implemented, such as passwords, two-factor authentication, and identity verification, are rendered totally ineffective once the confidential e-documents or records are legitimately accessed by an authorized employee. The documents are usually bare and unsecured, and this poses a tremendous challenge if this employee is suddenly terminated, if the person has rogue intent on doing harm, or if outside hackers are able to penetrate the secured perimeter. And of course, it's common knowledge that that happens. The focus should be on securing the documents themselves, so therefore going beyond perimeter security. Defense in depth is an approach that uses multiple layers of security mechanisms to provide information access and reduce the likelihood that rogue attacks can be successful. It's based on military principles that an enemy is trying to be successful, and by providing complex layers and approaches, it's more successful than a single line. That attackers may be able to penetrate one layer or perhaps two layers, but multiple security layers increase the chances of catching the attack before it gets too far. Defense in depth includes a firewall as the first line of defense, also antivirus and anti-spyware, identity and access management, hierarchical passwords, intrusion detection, biometric verification. Also, as part of an overall information governance program, physical security measures are deployed, such as smart card or biometric access to facilities, as well as an intensive information governance training and auditing. Identity access management aims to prevent unauthorized people from accessing a system, ensure that also only authorized individuals engage with information, including confidential e-documents. Identity access management, along with SHARP information government policies, manages and governs user access to information through an automated, continuous process. A robust and effective identity access management system provides for auditing, providing detailed audit trails of who attempted to access which information and when. So stolen identities can be uncovered, for instance, if an authorized user attempts to log in from more than one computer at a time. It allows for constant updating, regular reviews of access rights assigned to individuals, including review and certification for user access, and automated recertification and enforcement of information governance access policies that govern the way users access information. Evolving roles. Role lifecycle management should be maintained on a continuous basis to mine and manage roles and their associated rights and policies. Risk reduction, remediation regarding access to critical documents and information. One of the first tasks often needed when developing an information governance program is that secured confidential information needs roles and responsibilities. Rules and permission specifies who is allowed to access which documents and information, and even contextually from where. Office, home, travel, at what times, work hours, extended hours. Using the old policy of the need to know basis is a good rule of thumb to apply the setting up of these policies. Some basic measures can be taken to prevent confidential documents from being compromised as they are printed. You simply invoke some standard Microsoft Office protections, which allows you to print documents once you arrive in a copy room or at a network printer location. Some managers are not aware that the entire print files and sometimes remnants of them stay on the hard drives of high-speed printers and copy machines, and those are vulnerable to security breaches. Data center security personnel closely monitor calls to the database. To extract as much data as it can in print files, a hacker requires hundreds or even thousands of calls to a database, which sets off alerts by system monitoring tools. But retrieving a print file takes only one intrusion, and it may go entirely unnoticed. The files are sitting there. A rogue service technician or a field engineer can retrieve them on one routine service call. To help secure print files, specialized hardware devices designed to sit between the print server and the network and a cloaked server print file are visible only to those who have a cloaking device on the other end. Organizations should practice good information governance and have specific procedures to erase sensitive print files once they've been used. Digital signatures are more than just digitized autographs. They carry detailed audit information used to detect unauthorized modifications to e-documents and to authenticate the identity of the signatory. Online transactions can be conducted with full trust that they are legal, proper, and binding. They prove that the person whose signature is on the document did, in fact, authorize it. A digital signature provides evidence in demonstrating to a third party that the signature was genuine, true, and authentic. Data loss prevention creates software and hardware applications that thoroughly inspect all e-documents and e-messages before they leave the organization's perimeter and attempts to stop sensitive data from exiting the firewall. This filtering is based on several factors, but it mostly uses specified criteria content keywords that are flagged by the implementing organization. Data loss prevention can also stop the exit of information assets by document type, origin, time of day, or other factors. It's designed to detect and prevent unauthorized use and transmission of confidential information. It's a computer security term referring to systems that identify, monitor, and protect data. Information rights management provides a sort of security wrapper around documents, and it protects sensitive information assets from unauthorized access. We know that data loss prevention can search for key terms and stop the exit of sensitive data from the organization, but it can also provide prevention of confidential data from being copied to external media or sent by email if the person is not authorized to do so. If information rights management is deployed, files and documents are protected wherever they may be with persistent security. The ability to apply security to an e-document in any state, in use, in motion, at rest, across media types, inside or outside the organization, is called persistent security, and this is a characteristic of information rights management. It's all done transparently without user intervention. The ability to search secure data at any time, in any state, is called persistent protection, and this is the ability of information rights management. Embedded protection is when the document or the data is protected within itself. Embedded protection lets the document have encrypted technology within itself using some type of encryption. And then document labeling is an easy way to create user awareness about a particular document. It's simply stating, stamping, or coding a document as confidential. For instance, who wouldn't know the document labeled confidential is indeed confidential? The challenge is to standardize and formalize that process of getting some type of label on a document enterprise-wide. This is another form of information governance effort. A good way to use technology in this case is through SharePoint. SharePoint has an information management policy tool called Labels, which can be used to add a document label, such as our example, confidential, at the top of the document. Some software providers have document analytic capability that monitors the access, use, and printing of documents. In a real-time capability, the capabilities are very valuable Document analytics allows for a compliance officer or system administrator to view exactly how many documents a user accesses in a day and how many documents the user accesses on average. Confidential stream messaging. This is a way that separates a header and identifying information from a message and sends them separately, leaving no record or trace. And this is really a good option for executives and managers, particularly when engaged in sensitive negotiations, some form of litigation, or other highly confidential activities. Whereas email leaves behind a fingerprint that lives on forever on multiple servers and systems, stream messaging does not. Business records, trade secrets, intellectual property, confidential executive communications can be protected by implementing stream messaging. It can be implemented alongside and in concert with regular email systems, but clear rules on the use of stream messaging must be established, and access to it must be tightly restricted to a small circle of key executives and managers. So we looked at threats, including security breaches and intellectual property threat. And we looked at many potential solutions, including privacy laws, redaction, perimeter security, defense in depth, identity access management, rules and permissions, secure printing, email encryption, digital signatures, data loss prevention, information rights management, embedded protection, document labeling, document analytics, and confidential message streaming.